Welcome to another episode of Live from the Blue Seats. I'm your host, Rob, joined by Dave and producer JL, John-Luc Shapiro, and we are recording in the immediate aftermath of the Rangers' really solid road victory over the Ottawa Senators, their third road win in a row. This team has won 5 out of 6. They are very much alive. They very much look like they could be in the conversation in the Eastern Conference. We're going to talk all about it because this was a little bit of an emotional roller coaster of a week. And for myself, certainly good to be back after a few weeks off. Dave, how are you?
I am good. You know, I haven't been able to watch the games as much as I'd like because bedtime's been a train wreck lately, but I've been watching highlights on mute on my phone while I can, while I'm in my youngest's room, hoping and praying that she goes to sleep. And aside from the Tampa game, which was uh, I don't bad, bad. Uh, I like what I've seen the last couple of days. They look like a complete team. Maybe all it took was an injury to their best player for this to happen.
The irony, right? JL
Yes.
checking in. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I unfortunately was at that game on the Saturday where everything was falling apart, but it seems like they were able to rebound nicely against Dallas and especially against Ottawa tonight. So I'm actually really pleased to see how they're actually coming together to play like an actual hockey team, and everyone seems to be doing their part, which, I like. I'm very happy right now.
Yeah, and so what we'll do on this show is we're going to do a quick just reaction and uh you know discussion of the Ottawa game, since that's most fresh in our mind, and for you listening on Friday it'll be fresh in your mind as well. But the week and the discussion really does have to start with what seemed like rock bottom for the Rangers, the Tampa Bay game. Even though the Rangers had won, I think it was 3 in a row before that. Um that showing against the Lightning was alarming. And, Dave, I'll take this as an opportunity to plug Blue Seats After Dark. We'll do it later as well. But I listened to this week's episode on Tuesday morning, and you said it right on. It broke me. It broke you. It seemed to break all of us, where we were just like, that's it. Let's start talking about the long-term future of this franchise, because it is bleak right now. And while it seems like, yeah, it might be overreacting to one game, that was one of those unspeakable showings. And not only was it a poor performance, the Rangers lost their best player, Adam Fox, who had been, having probably his best season since he won the Norris Trophy in the 2020-2021 season. So it was really bad. And then the Rangers rose from the ashes against Dallas, played probably one of their best all-around games, and had to still win in come from behind fashion. And then really just another buttoned up road effort in Ottawa tonight, or on Thursday night, as you listen to this on Friday. But yeah, Dave, give me, and then we'll hear from JL. Give me your immediate emotions after the Tampa game. And I know you talked about it a little bit, but what about that game made you feel like that was the one that broke you?
Trying to put that into words. I think it was just like the icing on the cake for me, and the way the primary scorers, the top, like the JT Millers, the Mika Zibanejad, the Panarins, and how they had just been so, I don't want to say, between last year and this year, not disconnected, but disjointed. And it looked like their age was finally starting to show. JT Miller, I keep saying he's hurt. I think we all keep saying he's hurt, but there was something about that game that was beyond injuries and beyond just a bad game. I don't know how to phrase it. There was just not, you know what? I'll go with vibes. The vibes were they had given up already on the season, and it was barely December. It wasn't even December.
Yeah, and Jay, I'll come to you in a second because you were at the game, and I'm sure you'll have an interesting take from that perspective. But I think, Dave, really what it was for me it reminded me of last year. And it was one of those games where, and I think I compared it to, they played the Devils either right before or right after the Christmas break in the midst of that collapse last year. And they completely no showed. I think they got maybe 12 or 13 shots on goal. It was a very similar game, zero life. I mean, not one of those games where like, oh, you overreact as a fan and you're like, oh, they have zero life tonight, but they're still kind of having an okay game. It's just one of those games where a team doesn't have legs, and that's going to happen 6 or 7 times or maybe more during the course of an NHL season. That looked like a give up game, and that was alarming, given the fact that it was a new coach and also the aging core, like you mentioned. So yeah, it just reminded me so much of last year, and that's why I kind of inched my way towards the ledge on Saturday afternoon. JL, you were there. MSG has not been a fun place for the team or the fans this year. That certainly was home ice, rock bottom. What was it like in the building?
Well, at the beginning, obviously the vibes, as they say, were really good, obviously, because the team had just won the day before. So usually when that's the case, the crowd is pretty good. And you felt a pretty good vibe. It's a Saturday afternoon right after Thanksgiving, and everyone, seemed to kind of be into it. But as the game went along and they just kind of had this very listless effort, it just it wasn't dead in the sense that it was quiet. It was more tense, and it was very anxious, and it was more of like an annoyance. And there were some certain moments, especially when they weren't converting on the power play, where the fans started booing, and rightly so. I get it. I granted they did win the day before, but with the record they have at home and just the performances they've had on Garden Ice, you know, the, I can understand, especially with all the money that people pay for a ticket. You want to see them come out and do well. So the building was more tense and annoyed and frustrated, I think the real word to put in, especially with the way that they played the day before, dispatching Boston in Boston. So you want to have that at the Garden, but they didn't really give it to us that day. And it was a very depressing walk out of that building. And I mean, it still was a pretty good weekend nonetheless, but that was just really, really bad.
And then the icing on the cake was the Fox injury, which I think all of us at that point kind of thought, okay, well, and you said it multiple times, Dave, like straight up, like this is going to be bad. Like the team's just not equipped to handle this because the top six is not even a whole top six, and that is still an issue. And I'm sure we'll get to that, whether it's Johnny Brodzinski slotting in, Connor Sheary found his way back to the top six in tonight's game against Ottawa. There's still some issues there, but the defensive depth, right? Whether it's Scott Morrow not being ready for prime time, Matthew Robertson, a little bit of an adventure, or Hovakanainen can't get in the lineup despite some decent underlying metrics. Will
That
Borgen
one puzzles me, by the way, how Robertson is in over Vakanainen. But
yeah, I wonder if it's a mobility thing. Robertson does skate and move the puck pretty well for a guy his size. Vakanainen is much more of a slower plotting defenseman, but his metrics are decent. So I agree with you, Dave, and I know that they do look at those things. But no, I think to sort of transition to what's gone well over these last couple games, it's very cliche, guys, but everybody has stepped up, right? Obviously, Vlad Gavrikov has, I say this half jokingly, become an offensive machine. He has goals in 2 straight now. He is the overtime winner against Dallas. He gets the second goal against Ottawa tonight. But Braden Schneider has stepped into the top pair role and been fine. Again, Robertson and Morrow are seeing, slight uptick in their minutes. And we finally did get a really good Will Borgen game against Ottawa. I know he did take a penalty in the third period, but he was all over the place, breaking up plays, very physical, and also using the tool that everybody underrated when he came to this team, which was his skating, right? This is one of the things that everybody looked at his size and they looked at the metrics and they were like, this is just another slow, outdated, type of defenseman that Chris Drury has targeted. And that's not the case. Will Borgen's a very strong skater. And I saw multiple times tonight, Dave, where he picked up the puck in the corner, looped around a guy and skated it almost to the blue line and then made the first pass, right? So he's transporting the puck on his stick. He's not just flinging it off the glass. And they're going to need that because this team does struggle to move the puck from the back end, although it looks like they are solving that. I think Sullivan has sort of adjusted things to basically ask the defenseman to skate the puck up a little bit more before they look to make a pass.
I need to
But yeah.
actually spend a little bit more time looking at some of the earlier games to what you're saying now with the last couple of games to see if I'm catching that, because I am gonna be open. I watch as much as I can, but with bedtime and puck drop being the exact same time, it's tough for me to really watch full games. But I do have to take a step back and look at how the Rangers are getting out of the zone, because Borgen's always been a great skater. He never had that great first pass. And to be fair, only really Adam Fox has that great first pass out of all the Rangers blue liners. So if Sully really did adjust and say just skate the puck up the ice, then that's a great adjustment. That's why Sully is a top 3 coach in the NHL.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, it's they just played faster as a team, more connected. The defensive game has been there. I think Ottawa only had 7 or 8 high danger chances at 5-on-5, which is kind of right on par with what we saw earlier in the season. Yeah, I mean, it's just been a case, I think, at least, of everybody stepping up. Now the question is, how sustainable is it? And you know, uh, especially with the very apparent hole in the top 6, everybody's wondering, is Gabe Perreault going to get another shot? They called up Brendan Othman for obviously for injury cover, but are they going to try him in the lineup with Johnny Brodzinski kind of maybe regressing a little bit? There's some open questions there, but JL, anything you've noticed these last 2 games? Obviously the Dallas game is probably their best win of the season. I don't know if there's another comes to mind, but obviously getting the tying goal late, scoring in overtime, great energy throughout the game, dominant third period. I think they had 20 shots on goal in the third period, and that was their best home win of the year for sure. But anything else or any player in particular that stood out to you over the last couple games?
Well, one of the things I've noticed just with the team in general is that they seem to be more decisive with what they're doing with the puck. Before it was kind of like,
Yep.
yeah, I'm just going to try and throw a puck on the net, and most of the time that would get blocked. Panarin was pretty much the biggest culprit of that. But I think with what you guys mentioned, once the D started getting a bit more mobile, you know, they really began to sort of open up chances. Sullivan had mentioned that in one of his post game press conferences when they lost before they started really doing well, moving it around their own zone, was that the defense is too static. They're just standing there. When all the other team's D has to do is just stand there, while the Rangers defense was just sitting there in the back, not moving it around. But once you started to see Gavrikov go deep, and Will Borgen be a little bit more mobile, and especially, Adam Fox before his injury, you really began to see things sort of, come to life. And I think just one of the players that I think has done really well, Noah Laba has been nothing but fantastic in the third C. His face-off percentage is getting a lot better in terms of just the draws, but he's also very aggressive with it. There was one goal in particular that really stood out to me, and I'm trying to remember who they were playing. But it was against Carolina, I think. Yeah, it might have been against Carolina in Carolina, where it was him, Robertson, and Berard were cycling the puck. And instead of just kind of throwing it to the point, Robertson was in on the cycle, and I think Robertson had taken a defenseman away, which kind of gave Laba on the cycle a bit more room to just take it to the net, and he rifled it right past the goaltender. So Noah Laba, and obviously, also too, the return of Brett Berard has been nothing but fortuitous in terms of just luck for the Rangers. He's fit well with Laba, obviously with them and playing in Hartford, but also they throw in Will Cooley on that line, and we have the makings of a really aggressive sort of crap stirring third line. So I just noticed that they're just moving it around more. They're more aggressive, and the addition of Berard with Laba seems to really be, kind of working out for them.
Yeah. Anything to add there, Dave? Because I was
No.
just going to say,
Yeah, you said it nicely.
yeah, and yeah, just to add, to that, JL, Mike Sullivan is starting to trust that line. He put them out on the ice, and it was really good coaching. It's one of those things that you notice.
Mm-hmm.
With about 2 minutes and 50 seconds on the clock, the Kachuk line had just been out there, right? So Sully figures, okay, who can I put on the ice uh, for this shift, knowing that Kachuk's going to come back out on the ice with 2 minutes left with the goaltender pulled. And he put the Laba Berard Cooley line out there. And I just thought that was such a great vote of confidence, but also an acknowledgement of like, hey, this is our best idea right now, right? As opposed to Sam Carrick. And I have nothing against Sam Carrick. Again, Taylor Radish is a fine defensive player. I have my doubts about his kind of fit on this team, but he's a totally responsible, solid NHL, defensive forward, bottom six forward. But he chose to put that third line out there because he knows they play quick, they dump the puck, they forecheck, they create offense. And I just thought it was a really indicative of the state of the team currently. The other thing is Will Cooley is just such a perfect fit on that line. He's going to get his goals as he did to tie the game against Dallas. He's getting some power play time. He's already at 8 goals, so he's well on his way to 20 or 25. Putting him in a top 6 role when I don't think that's his. I don't think he's ready for it right now, and I think that
he's not.
If you can fill last right, exactly. So the point is, you've got to fill that last forward spot with somebody, whether that's Gabe Perreault or you make a trade and it's a bona fide top 6 winger from outside the organization, whatever it might be. If your third line is Berard, Laba, and Cooley, and you have a genuine good to great top 6, that changes the whole equation. And I think we've said this earlier this year, guys, but that changes the equation for me.
So I do want to point out, if we still have Cooley, Berard, and Laba, is that kid line round 2?
Sure.
Yeah.
But let's not call it that.
No,
that was kid line the sequel.
That will trigger some people.
Yeah.
Don't care. Get triggered. Get more passionate about this team. Enjoy it. I like that kind of discussion because if the Rangers keep playing like this, they're not going to win every single game. Let's be real here. But if they continue playing like they have in the last 2 games, where they're actually showing like they give a shit, then you're going to start getting more people who were like us after the Tampa game going, what the fuck is this? They're going to start engaging more. And I want to have that kind of discussion now. I want to see people saying, why can't we call them the kid line, the sequel, or something to that effect? What's wrong with it?
It's always more fun. Always more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like that's like little bullshit stuff that's fun to argue about because what else can we call them? They're a great line. They're fun to watch.
They really are, especially Noah Laba. Laba and Berard, I think together. I think Laba with Berard. Obviously, Cooley rounds them out really well, but I just think Laba with his intensity, there's just this tenacity to his game.
Yes.
And I really like, especially for someone who's a center. And then Berard, he gets a lot of high praise from Mike Sullivan being kind of a guy who likes to cause trouble. And you can see it just off of the way that he plays. So I think that with a team who really struggled with this sort of thing last season, I really think that this is vital for them for pretty much any success that they end up having this season.
So I do think we have to give Hope some credit. Hope is the one that said, listen, Laba's going to make this team. And she was 1,000% right. And
100%.
She has said Jackson Dorrington is the next guy to watch. So he was the other guy in the JT Miller trade.
Right.
And we were kind of joking in the group chat before that he may be the best player in the JT Miller trade.
Yes. Although I did want to shout out 2 quick things before we get to the questions. JT Miller, 3 assists in this game. Yes. For my money, it was his best game of the year.
Yep.
I don't know if it's sustainable. Again, he looks old and a little bit slow. He's got like piano on his back energy when he's skating, but he looks a little quicker. Things are coming off his stick a little cleaner, and hopefully it's a sign of things to come. And really quick on Laba, there were a couple of instances tonight where he went right into Brady Tkachuk's kitchen and had no issue playing him physically, bumping him off pucks. There was absolutely no intimidation there. And that's just such a great sign. I think they really have a legitimately good middle 6 center. Again, we'll see with the scoring, and I'm not that worried about the scoring because Noah Laba is the exact archetype of a championship player. Every Stanley Cup champion has that type of player. For Tampa, it's Anthony Cirelli. He does not have gaudy point totals. For Florida, it's Anton Lundell. There's guys just like that across every Stanley Cup winning roster over the last decade. I think the Rangers have that guy, and that's very exciting. That is, to me, is probably the most exciting takeaway from the first third of this season or so.
Can I just
All
add
right.
one more thing before we go into the questions?
Yeah.
I just want to say, I still maintain the belief that JT Miller is hurt because when he was traded here in February or at the end of January this season, last season, completely different type of player. He was engaged. He was, he was able to move quicker. Granted, he's a bit older, but he still last season when they traded for him, he still looked like he was, productive, which kind of, made things kind of cool once they assembled the team and it started to win is that this guy has it in him. I think that he is still somewhat compromised because everything kind of was different once he had that lower body injury in preseason. And I think just from what you said and just from his performance tonight, he might be coming out of that. And lower body injuries are tricky, especially for someone who's his age and is a bit older. So, hopefully we'll be able to get a more resurgent, typical JT Miller type player, or, not typical JT Miller type player, the JT Miller type player that we're used to seeing into this second half of the season. So I think he's hurt. I just think he's hurt.
Yeah.
So,
Which
and he's
means
just
he
getting
should
over it.
heal up over the Olympic break, assuming he does the right thing and stays
Well,
back.
you do know they're
Yeah.
going to pick him, so
Yeah, I know.
Him
Now
and
we just
Tro-
gotta
him
hope
and
that rink is
Trocheck.
too
him and
small.
Trocheck,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be on the fourth line probably. All right, let's go to the questions.
Yep. So I'll read the questions. This time we got a whole bunch on the site and one on Blue Sky. We'll start with Blue Sky so I can close the window. From DSAM1921, Blue Sky Social. How long do you see the 5-forward death punch power play 1 unit lasting?
Love that. Do you guys know who Five Finger Death Punch is? It's a band.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Just want to make sure everybody got the reference. I would like a defenseman on that unit as soon as possible. I may be in the minority there, but it didn't look great tonight. Rangers only had one power play against Ottawa, and it was pretty bad. Mostly because of Panarin. He just fumbled a few pucks and made a couple of weird decisions. But I don't think he's comfortable there. And now, look, I know he might get comfortable there, and the Rangers need a long-term solution with Fox out until at least the new year, right? But I would hope that they make an adjustment pretty soon because it doesn't look great to me.
Yeah, they need Morrow up there. You have to start seeing what Morrow is because I do agree with something that Brandon wrote earlier this week. The Drury in particular has this habit now of holding on to prospects just a little bit too long and they lose all value. If Morrow isn't it right now, you dangle him at the deadline for something better. I don't care if he was a key piece in the Keandre Miller deal. He's 23 years old at this point. You have to get something of value for him and not pull a Matthew Robertson with him.
Well, I'll say this. I said this to you guys in our chat, and I know I've probably said it, I said it to everybody else in our group chat as well. I wanted to see how the 5 forwards looked on defense on the power play rather, and Panarin was spouting all this stuff about, oh well, we I feel more comfortable there, this, that, and the fourth at the point, yada yada yada, and I was willing to give it a look, right, and all the times that he's been back there, he just kind of looks out of it. Panarin, I think his bread and butter is usually where Zibanejad is, which I really think that they should just end up putting them on different units for the time, for the time being. So yeah, I do agree that it's not. I don't. If they don't score, then they're gonna have to make some changes, and I think Scott Morrow just kind of needs to go there sooner than later. Because I'll tell you what, I think this Ottawa game was probably the best that Scott Morrow looked as a Ranger. Mike Sullivan talked about him being more decisive with the puck, and he was that tonight. And even in some pressure situations, he was able to hold his own. So I think now with this kind of showing, I think you really need to sort of get him out there and see what he's about. Like you guys said, you need to see what you have in him because, you either unlock something or like you said, you end up getting something at the deadline for him. But I really do think that they need to see what he does on the first power play unit. I've changed direction, as people tend to say, and I'm allowed.
You're allowed to
I'm a human.
change direction when you are given new information.
Always.
You are allowed to rethink what your previous opinions and adjust. That's called critical thinking. That is the definition of critical thinking. You have an opinion, you get new information, you adjust your opinion based on the new information. Anybody who thinks that questioning experts is critical thinking, it's not. It's taking your own opinions and evaluating them based off new information that becomes available. That's the fucking textbook definition of it. So, JL, congrats on teaching us what critical thinking is.
Thanks. I like to know my brain works.
I don't know. You still,
Okay.
record podcasts and write 75,000 blog posts at the same time.
Okay, Dave. Okay, sure. Get mad at me for contributing to the site. Yes, thanks. Set that precedent. Good job. Yes.
So, Rob, JL, I wake up to a text message from JL saying, I put a couple of posts in drafts. Just wanted to let you know. I'm like, okay, I drop the girls off at school. I get, I get set up and everything. And then I go and I look at 12 of them.
I mean, you don't have to write a word for a month. You're good.
Yeah, pretty much. You're welcome, David.
Yes, no, I said thank you, but I think we need to work on what your definition of a few is. Anyway, next question. Now we're on the site questions. So for those who do not know, every Thursday when I remember or when JL or Rob text me to remind me, we post asking for questions. We have 17 of them. First one coming from Eugene45. Curious and asking for educational responses. Ryan Leonard in Washington has been lighting it up for them. Obviously played in the same college team as Gabe Perreault. So why is Perreault in the minors, needing valuable development time, and Leonard is lighting it up in the NHL?
So now I'll say this not knowing almost anything about Ryan Leonard other than the fact that I think he was like, the way that, is he a center? I think he is. He's a center. Perreault and Will Smith were the wingers. So that's probably part of it. I don't know what his size is, his physical build, but everything you read about Perreault, whether you want to give this proper weight or not, is that he needs to physically mature, is that he's just a little too small and slight for the NHL game. And that once he's physically able to withstand a little bit of contact and hold on to pucks, he'll be able to make plays. And at that point, his game will blossom. I mean, look, the ceiling is, or the scouting report is definitively he's a top 6 NHL player. So now top 6 could mean you're a 60-point guy. It could mean you're an 80-point guy.
It could mean you're a 40-point guy.
Yes. Right. It depends. Right. But right. How much power play time are you getting? It doesn't sound like he could be 100-point guy, but also you never know with these things. Right. So, all I've heard, and I'm not watching Perreault's games, I'm certainly not watching a ton of Ryan Leonard, is that he needs to physically mature and that they feel like spending significant time in the AHL is going to help that process.
And to add on to that, Perreault is bordering on can't miss at this point. You don't want to go and fuck it up by rushing him to the NHL when he still needs a little bit more strength. Nothing kills confidence more than being forced into a position that you're going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing kills it more. So this is not a Stanley Cup season for the Rangers. Why would they force him on the roster right now? Let him cook. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I seem to be in more of an agreement on that. I think the difference between Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault is that I think that Perreault's game fits what the Capitals can currently do right now, and I'm not entirely sure of Leonard's physical makeup, but it just kind of seems like the difference between the two is pretty much decision making. Sullivan and pretty much alluded to that once he's able to get a little bit more size and kind of up his decision making a little bit, in terms of the speed and the size of the game, he'll be here, permanently. But for the time being, it just kind of seems like and it's not to say he isn't performing well in Hartford. He's actually doing really well in Hartford. But you want to make sure that when a player like him is down there, he's able to gain his confidence and able to kind of translate it into the NHL once he's able to do it either physically and also just with the speed of the game. Because you have to remember, and this is the same principle that goes to Scott Morrow too, is that the AHL game is a lot slower than the NHL game. It's different types of players. The decision making is different. The timing is different. Even from college to the AHL is much different. So I think they're just looking for certain things that can end up, that they just need to be worked on. So in Perot's case, it's probably just more, at least at this point, just more of a timing and decision making thing, because he's playing really well. But I do think, though, that if things continue the way that they are in terms of them looking for someone on the top six, I really think that Perot's probably going to be here sooner than later. And to be honest, when he was paired on that first line while Perot was here, he didn't look terrible. But I just think that they were tight on the cap space and they needed a defenseman, so they kind of had to send him down so they could get Scott Morrow back up here. And I think honestly, it was a bit more pressing to see what Morrow was about than what Perot was. So I just think with Perot, it's just more of the size and the timing and just kind of seeing where he's at with that. Leonard kind of seems to top that. And also Leonard's playing with Ovechkin and PL Dubois and Dylan Strome. So those guys are able to really hide a lot of the, sort of things that Leonard may lack on. And plus they're just, the Capitals are just a different type of team. So
yeah. And I did misspeak, by the way. Leonard's not, he's not playing center for the Caps. He's playing wing. He is the biggest of the three players. Will Smith is not a particularly big player either. He's listed at 6 feet, 180 pounds. Perot's listed at, I think it's 5'11", 178. Leonard is 6'1". I think he's over 200 pounds. So, and again, those heights and weights could be real or not real. They're probably within a decent margin of error. I think I think it is a stylistic thing, JL, to your point. Like, he's just more of a cerebral player. And when you play that style of game, you've got to have the physical maturity to do it, because you don't have the natural sort of physical gifts to just like outplay your imperfections. Because he's not a perfect player, right? But he's not built like Will Cooley, right? Where Will Cooley might lose a puck, but then he's fast enough to get back and physical enough to knock an opponent off the puck. So it's just, yeah. I mean, I think your analysis, Dave, also is the most important thing here, is that I think the Rangers do have a little bit of like PTSD when it comes to some of their other marquee prospects, where they're literally like, we cannot mess this kid up. It just can't happen. Based on what's happened with every other highly touted prospect we've had. So
Ever.
Right, exactly. So it's just, they're like, this kid has to be part of the future. He cannot become even, I think for them, the line is Lafreniere. Like, he's got to be better than Lafreniere.
Yep.
And that's how they're thinking of this. And I think to them, they'd rather keep him in the minors a month or two too long than bring him up a month or two too quickly.
Yeah. All right, moving to the next from Earth Yourself. Why is Connor Sheary still on the team? I don't have a problem with Connor Sheary. I feel like I'm the only one that doesn't have a problem with this guy.
No,
he has a great motor. He has a great motor. If he scored 2 goals, nobody would be having this conversation. He's fine. He is not holding a spot on the roster from anybody. There's no way you can tell me with a straight face that Brennan Hoffman has outplayed him. So
right.
That's it.
Especially now that Berard's in the lineup. Yeah, no, I totally agree. We don't need to spend too much time on that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
All right, on to the next. NYC Crash. Is it true? Oh, okay. You can tell I'm reading these for the first time because I paused. Is it true someone is trying to buy the team from Dolan?
What?
If so, do you think it would be a good thing? Oh boy, where did you hear that?
Yeah.
I really want to know where you heard that, because I have not heard anything about it.
I haven't heard anything about news. Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that either. I mean,
I have a pretty decent handle on the business side of sports too. I think I probably would have read something if there was any sort of report that Dolan was selling. Because, by the way, if Dolan's selling the Rangers, he's also probably selling that. He's definitely selling the Knicks. It's all one company.
Yeah.
And the Garden.
That would be the biggest story in sports. So
yeah,
we would have heard that.
Oh, not just the biggest story in sports, just the biggest story in New York City infrastructure generally. Because if Dolan sells the Garden, or he sells the Knicks and he sells the Garden, then you get into the territory of what they're going to potentially do with renovating Penn Station. Right. So that would also just be over the regular news as well. So
But there was a second part to the question that I think
Okay.
is interesting. Do you think it would be a good thing for the Rangers if Dolan sold? I'm conflicted on that.
Well,
I am too.
I
I,
mean,
I go ahead,
go ahead.
JL.
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
JL has thoughts.
Okay, so it's kind of a double-edged sword because you have to see who it is first because we went through this whole song and dance when the Mets were being sold, and obviously we lucked out with a guy who probably has more money than some countries in this world, so he was able to invest. He was able to really invest in the team, and it's done a lot of benefit for the Mets, but I don't know who would buy the Rangers. I mean, obviously, it would have to be at a pretty high price point. You have to talk at least more than $5 billion. But at whatever price point it is, they would have to sort of have deep pockets. But who knows? Maybe they're cheap. They have deep pockets, but they're cheap. Who the heck knows? So it's kind of if you don't like Dolan, then I get it. You want him to sell, but at the same time, could he be meddlesome? Yeah, he's not perfect, but he at the end of the day, he kind of lets them do what they want to do to a degree. I know he's not the perfect owner, but it just honestly all depends on who it is. It's just hard to really tell until the person actually ends up buying the team and ends up, really taking the reins. But I don't think James Dolan is selling. I think he's going to have the teams until he dies.
JL, the thing about Steve Cohen as well, not only does he have pretty much unlimited amounts of money, he's also a Mets fan.
He's a Mets fan, exactly.
So
Yeah.
he will do almost anything to see that team win, financially speaking. And that's the difference because plenty of hedge fund billionaires exist on, not to get political, but a lot of people don't think that should be the case. There are lots of venture capital firms, hedge fund billionaires, people who see sports franchises as investments, right? That are like, all right, well, if the Rangers are worth 4 billion or 5 billion today, they're going to be worth 10 billion in 30 years. So let's buy them now, right? That's how these people think. And they would run the thing like a business. Steve Cohen is not going to run the Mets like a business. He's running them like a fan, a smart fan, and with smart people in place, no doubt, right? It's not reckless, but that would be the caveat for me is like, fine, if there was an equivalent Steve Cohen that had made his money independently and was clearly a smart businessman, but also deeply passionate about the Rangers specifically, I think maybe you'd have a marginal advantage over an owner like James Dolan. Now, James Dolan is an extremely flawed human being. He's an extremely flawed owner. But I think two things have happened with him over the last 10 years that have made him like decide, in my mind, at least neutral as an owner, where he's not really affecting things in either direction. One is he's always been a music and entertainment guy first, and he's really focused on that part of his portfolio, right? With the renovation of Radio City, the acquisition and renovation of the Beacon Theater, building the Sphere in Las Vegas. Now they're looking to build spheres in other cities around the world. That is almost entirely his focus right now. He is very much leaving the operations to the sports operations to the guys in charge, right? Leon Rose on the Knicks side, Chris Drury on the Rangers side. The other thing that's happened is I think Dolan has mellowed out a little bit in his old age. He's just not as involved. He's not running to the press to throw someone under the bus after some argument they had, right? Like it's just, he's kind of keeping a very low profile. And like I said, kind of the other part of what I said, focusing on like the entertainment piece of the MSG business. So, to me, I think it's probably, he's neutral at this point, and it's probably a small chance that a new owner would affect real positive change.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say and add to that is be careful what you wish for.
Yes.
Dolan is willing to throw money at his teams. You never know what's going to happen with the new owner. The evil you know is better than the evil you don't.
Yeah, what's the name of Boston? Jeremy Jacobs? Is
Jeremy Jacobs, yeah.
Oh, what a
one of the cheapest
douchebag.
assholes on earth. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a fucking he really is a fucking asshole. I hate him. And I've never met him. But
You're allowed to hate him.
Yeah, because of the way the lockouts went. And yeah, if you want to blame one guy for all the lockouts, it's him.
Yeah.
All right, next question from Spozo. If Schneider continues to shine while Fox is out, does it increase or decrease his likelihood of being traded? So I have not been able to watch full games. The Dallas and the Ottawa game, I only
looked
caught a
great.
couple of
He
periods.
looked
He
really good.
has looked good? Okay.
Yes, especially with Gavrikov. I mean, obviously that's a bit of a boost, but we had a lot of concerns about Schneider being this sort of didn't didn't look great, but I think with more responsibility, I think he looked good. I think, and even tonight, he looked very steady.
He's been solid. Primary assist on the Gavrikov goal tonight too. But
Can I just add the
Yeah.
context of where this is coming from? So I've been fairly vocal that that the Rangers can't spend $5 million on a third pairing defenseman. And that's what Schneider is when the Rangers are fully healthy. He's not beating out Adam Fox, and for some reason, he's not playing ahead of Will Borgen. It's bad cap management to have him have a third pairing defenseman at $5 million. So that's where all that's coming from. And there are a bunch of comments calling me out on what is supposedly a hot take. I don't think it's a hot take to say you can't spend $5 million on a bottom of the lineup player. So that's where that question comes from.
Yeah, and I guess the only slight argument I would have to that, Dave, is there a world where Will Borgen does slot down to the third pair, and then you're paying him $4 million or 4.1 on the third pair? Are you okay with that? Like, what's the line? Like, what should you spend on your third pairing right-handed defenseman?
I think you should spend on your third pairing no more than you would spend on your fourth line.
Total.
So if your fourth line is Carrick, Edstrom, Rempe, or Carrick, Edstrom, Brzezinski, what is that? $3.5-4 million total?
Yeah, about that.
For three guys, then your bottom pair should be four. I'll give you plus or minus 20%. So 4.5 total for the pair, not per player.
Right.
So if the Rangers can get an entry-level contract, say Jackson Dorrington on the left side, then great. I just don't agree with paying bottom of the lineup players that much money, especially when it seems Drury has blinders on for Borgen, and he's been great. I don't want to take anything away from Borgen. And B, Schneider is a hell of a fucking trade chip. If you want to address offense, address replacing Kreider's production, address replacing Panarin's production, address replacing JT Miller's whatever the hell he's doing right now, Schneider's the guy that gets you that production. I'm not saying dump Schneider. I'm saying if there's a hockey trade where you can get I don't know, give me a 24-year-old 50-point winger.
Jason Robertson?
No.
So I keep going back to that too, because Dallas desperately needs right-handed defensemen, and we have no idea what's going on with Jason Robertson. I do think there is something that can happen there. And if you're telling me you would rather hold on to Schneider than get Jason Robertson, I don't know what the hell to tell you. We're never going to see eye to eye on this. You give Braden Schneider a fucking piggyback ride to Dallas if that's what it takes.
In terms of just Schneider, he's playing well, yes, but if this ends up becoming a situation where they have to kind of trade him, this is the perfect time to showcase him, And I think that with the cap going up and teams looking to try and lock pieces down that are affordable, I think a team would be more than likely to overpay for a guy like Schneider because, with Borgen playing so well and, you got a couple other guys coming up in the system that could potentially be here sooner than later, then, he kind of seems to be the odd man out, especially if Borgen keeps playing this well and just also the fact that Borgen just signed that extension. Do I want them to trade Schneider? Not really, but if it gives them more offensive firepower, like you said, then yeah, I think that this is a good opportunity for them to really showcase him a little bit more. And if not, then you have a guy who can fill in for you when someone's hurt.
Here's a name. Although he had 58 points, so it's a little bit more. William Eklund on the Sharks. do they need defensemen, right? Because they're now turning the corner, right? They're a decent team. Celebrini's legit. Smith is scoring at a pretty high rate, but who are their defensemen?
That's interesting.
That is
Right. And like,
interesting.
is William Eklund a guy they won't be able to resign in a couple of years? So yeah, I mean, that, and literally, I'm not a big AI guy, but I did, as you guys were talking, type into Chat GPT, send me a list of NHL players under the age of 25 who have scored between 45 and 50 points the last couple of years. It's not a long list. The other guy on it was Uri Slavkovsky. I don't think we're trading with Montreal.
No, Jeff Gordon will rather die before that happens.
Right,
Before- yeah.
exactly. And that was like
Yeah.
their first major pick under the Gorton regime. So, but maybe like a William Eklund is that type of player. Again, he had 58 points last year, 17 goals, 41 assists. So that's a decent clip.
Yeah,
Teams
I'd
tend
be
to
okay
find a
with
way to
that.
keep those types of guys, but if they really feel like they need, and again, the advantage the Rangers have in any Schneider discussion is that right-handed defensemen are an extremely rare commodity. Good right-handed defensemen are an extremely rare commodity in the NHL. That is why, as funny as the clip is, looking back on it, right? JD fist pumping when the Rangers were able to trade up and draft Schneider. It was because he was right-handed, and whether or not that's an arcane way of looking at things, you can decide that for yourself. It was also the reason the Rangers traded for and extended Jacob Trouba, was because he was right-handed. They gave up a lot for him. They gave him a huge contract, and JD said, at the press conference that, hey, there are not many right-handed defensemen in the league of this quality, and Schneider is, look, his nickname was Baby Trouba. I don't think he'll ever have that level of offensive production, that we saw from Trouba in his early years in Winnipeg. But the fact that he's a right-handed defenseman who can skate and has size definitely plays to the Rangers' advantage in any trade conversation.
So the question itself was, does his play increase or decrease his likelihood of being traded?
Increase, 100%.
I think so too.
I think increase.
Yeah, because there's other holes on the roster, and if they're trying to build a contender and get younger and faster up front, that's the way to do it.
And remember, the Rangers aren't exactly without defensemen in the system. Outside of Dorrington, we already spoke about Morrow. You got to see what you have in him. You got EJ Emery, who is one of the top defensive defensemen in the NCAA right now.
Right-handed shot, I think. I'm correct.
Oh, he's a righty. Sorry, I keep doing that. He's a right-handed shot. I don't know why I said lefty.
I'm looking that up.
Fortescue
he is a right-handed shot. Yes. Good call.
And then Drew Fortescue is a lefty coming in soon. The Rangers have a lot of solid defense prospects, and Emery looks like the real deal on the right side. So if you can use Schneider and his projected $5 million contract to go get a William Eklund, that is one hell of a trade. I didn't think William Eklund would even be available, but with all that scoring depth they have in San Jose, they could probably use a Schneider. That's a hell of a trade. I would love to see something like that. But like, you're not trading Schneider for, say, I don't know, a second round pick. You're not dumping Schneider.
They're not trading. They're not trading Tyler Toffoli for Braden Schneider.
No,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, on to the next, Mr. Whiskers. What would the return for Panarin and Lafreniere be once they're dealt?
Wow.
Is it together or is it separate?
Let's just assume separate. And this is under the assumption the Rangers are trading both, which I wholeheartedly disagree with. But that's not the question. The question is, what is the package?
Oof.
I think you can get it. Let's again go back to Jason Robertson. If Robertson is clear that he's not re-signing in Dallas, if he is clear he is not re-signing in Dallas, I'm going to repeat that again. I think Lafreniere and Schneider get you Robertson.
Together,
yeah. I like that. I would do that.
As for Panarin, good prospect, B+ prospect and a first round pick.
I think Panarin.
It's your prospect here.
Panarin gets you. I think a trade comp for Panarin would be the Kreider trade.
No. Terrence was a C prospect at best.
Well, I said similar, not the same. They'd probably be a little bit better because of the fact that Panarin is, better. So I think you'd probably get someone like that, but obviously a bit more skill. Who that could be, I can't think of that right now. But I think that whoever they get would more than likely make an impact on the roster within a year or two. Terrence seems like something that's more of a project about a year or two away. Um, but I think with the Panarin, and you probably get like a second round pick at the same time, considering that his contract is expiring. So I can see that kind of being the case. With Lafreniere, if it's just Lafreniere by himself, I think you can trade him for like a second round pick and maybe a similar type of player, maybe get a C prospect because let's be honest, I think and Lafreniere looked great tonight, by the way. Like, he's been looking a lot better with his passing. Nothing just seems to be connecting. But I think once things start to connect a little bit, the points will start coming in. But if Lafreniere could be part of a deal where it's like you have high prospects who aren't working out with their teams, and it's kind of a swap, which, truth be told, I wouldn't be totally against the Lafreniere Svechnikov swap because Svechnikov can't play center. So, but I doubt that's going to happen. But I mean, the crazier things have happened. So that's what I think. In the case that they end up getting traded together, I think that ends up getting you sort of a Braden Schneider type player or Jason Robertson type player.
Okay, so Rob, can you talk me off the ledge on this? Because I'm ready to yell at JL for saying neither one of them will get the Rangers a first round pick.
I don't think so. Honestly, I really don't. I really don't think so.
You're saying Artemi Panarin is not worth a first round pick? I don't know. I mean, I certainly think he is. I mean, like, especially if so. Is this a deadline deal, or are they doing this like tomorrow?
Panarin in general is a rental. So let's just
Right.
assume Panarin's a rental, and Laff has another 6 years at $6.5 million, which is a bargain contract at this point.
Yeah, the only way, first of all, the only way any team is like a Lafreniere trade to me is I think that's got to be more of like a change of scenery type trade because I don't think the league at large has sort of like given up on or written off Lafreniere. He's, but right before he signed that deal, that's the other thing that I think people forget. That contract was like a stroke of horrible luck for him. And I know a lot of guys, there's a perception that guys basically quit once they get paid. Lafreniere does not have like a reputation as the hardest worker, but also it's probably not fair to him to just say like, oh, he signed that deal and decided he doesn't want to, play hard anymore. He not only had a great 23-24 season and was their best player in the playoffs, right? Against Florida, the eventual Stanley Cup champions. He had an amazing start to the following season.
Yeah.
And only when he signed his deal did he fall off a cliff, but so did the whole team, right? And now he's under a new coach. This is the fourth coach for him. Did he play under Quinn? Or was it Gallant?
That was his first. That was his rookie year. Was with Quinn was the lockout year or the COVID year.
Yes, right. So he's played for four coaches because the Rangers have not been a bastion of stability behind the bench. I just don't think my overall take is like I don't think the league has given up on him. So you are probably getting some franchise's equivalent of Alexis Lafreniere and that type of deal. I think a team would be open to a change of scenery type trade. Now you're not getting another guy who was a first overall pick, but there might be another guy who was drafted in the first round that isn't fitting with his current team that they do a straight up swap. And maybe there's some picks and other roster players to kind of make the math work. But don't we see guys like Panarin get first round picks at the deadline all the time? Like that seems pretty normal to me. So I think he's definitely worth the first round pick. Yeah. And the guy he's like trending towards having another 85 to 90 point season. And there's a real question now, by the way, of like whether or not the Rangers can afford to lose him because again, what are they trying to do this season? And this is where the rubber meets the road for Drury and Sullivan and the whole front office and coaching staff is, are we really going for this? Like, are we trying to make the playoffs and are we trying to make a run? Right. If so, we have to keep Artemi Panarin and that probably necessitates re-signing him. And that probably means we're buyers at the deadline. And as positive as we feel with this team having won 5 of 6 and it's still having decent underlying numbers, they are 1 point out of a playoff spot and they've played more games than anybody in the conference. So do with that what you will.
Yeah. All right, on to the next. We got a couple of fun questions. First from NYC Crash. If I have $1 bill and I give you half, what do I have left? The answer is both of us have nothing because half of $1 bill is still less than the 2/3 you need for it to be legal currency.
Nice.
Yeah, you rip up legal tender. It's not legal anymore.
I didn't know there was a 2/3 limit.
It's something. It's I think 60% or something like. It has to be a little bit more than that.
Yeah. If you have a dollar that's like really beat up, you could still use to buy stuff if it's like still somewhat intact. Like it can have some of the corners chipped off or whatever. But if you're splitting $1 worth, you just pretty much wasted legal tender, and it's now illegal tender. Haha.
Nice.
Okay. Next one from Earth Yourself. A horse walks into a bar and the bartender says, "Hey, buddy, why the long face?" The answer is because they're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan.
I was just gonna say, what is a horse doing at a bar and what happened at the zoo, but
the Toronto Maple Leafs, by the way, again, since I have the standings open, I'll let you know they are 13, 11, and 3. They have 29 points. That's 4 points out of a playoff spot. They are closer to last in the conference. They're only 3 points ahead of Buffalo. Tough year up in Toronto.
good.
Yeah.
Good is right. I'm so sick of hearing about them.
Yeah.
Although when they're
seriously.
bad, it's probably worse, right? They probably talk about them more. So whatever.
All right. The next one, again, from Earth Yourself. What do you call a woman with one leg? Eileen.
You don't have to read all these, Dave. I'll just
I know, yeah.
They're kind of funny, so I'm going with
those
it.
are good. You can read those. I'm fine with those.
All right, now we're back to actual questions. Also from Earth Yourself. This one is an actual question. Is Fox that great of a defenseman that we can't win without him? Well, they just won 2 in a row, but he is that great of a defenseman.
You know
He's
what's
a top 3
funny about
defenseman
that?
in the NHL, period.
You know what's funny about that is they had a very similar situation when Fox got hurt against Carolina 2 seasons ago, and they actually that did when they had Zach Jones in the lineup.
Eric Gustafson too.
Eric
Yes.
Gustafson was manning the first power play. They did reasonably well.
They did really well.
That was also when they lost Philip Hedl too. They did reasonably well, so I think the same thing's going to happen. So, they can win without him. It's just they can't win without him for an extended period of time. I think.
Yeah.
I think if he's out, if something happens where he's out for, let's say, another month, then maybe the cracks will begin to show. But it seems like they're able to actually kind of get by right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think to add to that, Fox is an interesting player because he doesn't like physically dominate the game, right? He is very cerebral. As a matter of fact, he kind of has to slow the game down. You have to play the game at his pace, excuse me. He's absolutely brilliant. He's second in the league among defensemen in scoring to Cale Makar. He is going to be a Norris Trophy finalist. He's a bona fide top pair defenseman. You are not a serious hockey team if you don't have one of those. So, and as great as Gavrikov has been, he is not that. He's not the driver that Adam Fox is. But there's something to be said for, you can adjust your style and everybody can sort of assume a little bit more responsibility and carry the load for, like you said, JL, a short amount of time. Now, I think if you played it out over 82 games, the Rangers are 5 to 6 wins worse, right? They have 5 or 6 fewer wins. That's 10, 12, maybe 15 points in the standings. If you factor in some overtime losses, that might not even happen without Fox, right? So like that's a significant difference. And I think that's one of those things where like the sample size really matters. But if everybody's locked in, if everybody is, if Braden Schneider is benefiting from more minutes, maybe Scott Morrow finds his footing with a little additional responsibility. And again, like the rest of the team, not just the defensemen, the forwards step up and play better. JT Miller tonight, prime example. You can sustain the loss and you can get through it. And look, this year there's been more injuries than usual because of the compressed schedule due to the Olympics. Every team is dealing with significant injuries. So this is no excuse. Like, and if the Rangers are serious about trying to make the playoffs and be a competitive team this season, they can't fold with Fox out. As bad as this looked when the injury happened, they can't go 3-8 in these 11 games or 3-10, however many games it's going to be. They've got to find a way to be, a game or two above 500 to hang in the mix here. So I think they're aware of that urgency, and that's probably what will drive some inspired play out of the team.
All right. Next one, midline shift. Where do the Rangers rank among New York sport teams in popularity? So 1, 2 are obviously Knicks, Yankees. In any order.
Yeah, I think the Yankees are the clear number one only because of their New York is very much a baseball town. I think JL would definitely agree with that.
Yes.
The Giants and Jets have been so bad for so long that first of all, if that question was asked even 6 or 7 years ago, I would have said the Giants are number 2 by far to the Yankees because of the history, because of the success. But I think both of those football teams have like cost themselves fans because they've been bad for so long.
Yes.
And
100%.
it has affected the overall popularity of the team, right? So I would agree with you, Dave, that the Yankees and the Knicks probably are the top 2. That said, because the NFL is so big, I would still say the Giants and Jets are probably 3 and 4. Actually, I would say Giants then Mets. Sorry. So
Well,
yeah, I would go Yankees, Knicks, Giants, Mets, Jets, top 5.
I
And
would
the
say,
yeah.
I would say top 3, Yankees or Knicks, Yankees, Mets, with the Mets, not only signing Juan Soto but actually being somewhat competitive. And I might be a little biased, so to speak, but I laugh because if you don't know, I'm a huge Mets fan. But I do think though that with Juan Soto coming around and Steve Cohen buying the team, I think that's kind of added a jolt of popularity. And with the
Yeah.
fact that there's going to be a giant casino and entertainment complex along with a soccer stadium outside of Citi Field, I think that more people are really paying attention to the Mets as a whole. Then after that, I think Giants, Jets, of course, just because they've sucked recently. And I think right after that, I think the Rangers would go over at least the Brooklyn Nets because the Nets suck.
Yes.
No, you see,
No one cares.
no one
keep forgetting
cares
the
about
Nets are in
Nets.
Brooklyn.
Right.
Yeah, it's wild how irrelevant they are. They are
Yeah,
irrelevant.
it's funny because they had the perfect opportunity to really kind of take things away. Granted, the Knicks are the Knicks, but when they moved from New Jersey to Brooklyn in 2012, they had the biggest opportunity to kind of control the narrative of basketball in New York City because, Brooklyn is Brooklyn, being that I am from Brooklyn and, I know a lot about the demographic of Brooklyn, it's a very passionate group of people just generally. So if you were able to really catch that sort of fan base and steal stuff away from the Knicks, they could have done something really big. But the Knicks were terrible then, and they still couldn't capitalize on it. Granted, they had some years where they did well with Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and all that, but they still couldn't capture anything because again, whenever the Knicks are somewhat decent, they just capture the attention of the city. So, I think the
It's
Nets are really all the way down there.
yeah, they are, and it's not even a contest, by the way. Like the
No.
Knicks are so far and away more popular. I mean, you're totally right, JL. The Knicks did the same thing, right? They were so bad for so long; they were a laughing stock of the league, and the Nets went out and got all those star players, and they had Kevin Durant. They were a toe on the line away from like the Eastern Conference Finals, and that was only a few years ago. But
Mm-hmm.
especially since Jalen Brunson came to the Knicks, it's just a completely different conversation. And they
Oh, yeah.
are, yeah, I mean, they are. I think they are probably truly the second most popular team in the city. And then so I think the Nets fall below everybody else, and then the Islanders and Devils. We're not even really counting them. So
Honestly,
yeah,
I would think that the Islanders have more fans than the Nets
I
because the
agree.
Nets are
I would agree.
100%.
extremely
Yes, 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 yes,
local.
yes,
The Nets are so local, and I don't hear anybody talking about the Nets ever. Yet I can have a lot of legitimate hockey conversations at work with Islander fans, with Devils fans, with Ranger fans.
for sure.
So I would
Right.
put the Nets dead last.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would have, working backwards, Nets dead last, then probably in terms of New York sports, I guess we're considering the Devils. So Devils, then Islanders,
Yeah.
then Rangers, and then you get into the big four of New York sports.
Yep.
Big three.
Think
Big
that's
four? Mets, Yankees, Knicks, Jets, Giants, big five.
Yeah,
Who taught me math? Ay.
It's late.
Yeah. All right. 2-line passes. What is your favorite scene in Slapshot?
There's so many to pick from.
I don't know if I have one. I can't pick one. He
Yeah.
put the GIF in the comments, putting on the foil,
Putting on
which
the
was
foil.
you know what? I'm gonna go with that because that was my Halloween costume one year. I had the foil on my hands and everything. I'll go with that. And then there's a comment from NYC Crash. Hey Hanahan, your wife's a dyke.
I think I can't really pick one, but I'd say one of my favorite scenes was when they find out that the guy's a drunk and that if they hit him, he's gonna pee his pants. So they single him out and they just like go after him. They just freaking go after him and he ultimately ends up peeing his pants. Obviously, there's the scene where at the beginning with the reporter or with the TV host and the French goalie is explaining the different rule. And with the stick, you hook, you can't do that. No, that's also really funny. And then there's also the scene when I think when the Hanson brothers are in the room and they're like unpacking, and I think they open their briefcase and it's just a bunch of toys, and the guy says, "They brought the freaking toys," So
I
that's
feel like
just
we could be here all day going through this.
You guys covered it. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So 2 more questions, and they're pretty quick. One actually just got posted a minute ago, but it's a good one. From Mr. Whiskers. Any truth to Drury inquiring about Brian Rust? I have not heard anything. I don't think it moves them in the right direction.
Yeah, I would stay away from that.
Yeah, no, I think that was just Chris Johnson and Vince Marcagliano just spitballing.
All right. The last one from Blue Shirts. Is Gabe Perreault really a can't-miss prospect? Yes.
Yes.
He better be, as we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. All right,
no,
that is
yeah,
it
he is
on
that
the
good.
questions.
Amazing. Okay. I would love if you guys would indulge me for 30 seconds about Larry
Sure.
Brooks, since I haven't had a chance to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
That was so devastating. It legitimately affected me emotionally for someone I might have met him once or twice. He blocked me on Twitter. Who cares? It does not matter. That was his prerogative. I was probably being snippy.
You snippy? Never.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not that snippy, but sometimes. It's probably why I'm off Twitter now too, because it was bringing out the worst in me, which it does to a lot of people. Just an absolute titan of the industry. Someone who I always looked forward to reading, and I say that as someone who does not like clicking on a New York Post link ever, due to who they're owned by and what they've done to media over the last few decades. But I make an exception for Larry Brooks and his coverage of the Rangers. I thought was exceptional. I hated missing. I hated when the column went behind the paywall. Again, similar thing. I didn't want to, directly put money in Rupert Murdoch's bank account, so I didn't subscribe to Post Sports Plus or anything like that. But no, that legitimately affected me, and I think, he was just such a huge part of the fabric of being a Rangers fan that, I just felt really sad to hear that news, and it was really also wonderful to see how he was honored across the hockey and sports world. There were a lot of really wonderful things written and great tributes by the Rangers and by a lot of the arenas that they've been to, right? Kind of holding his spot and putting a little photo and memorial and a bouquet of flowers at his seat in the press box. It's everything he deserved. And he will not be replaced. Like he is, and and I think this is something that maybe folks don't realize because coverage and journalism and media has changed so much. But, I was a journalism major in college, and I kind of wanted to do that job growing up. I wanted to either be a beat reporter or a play-by-play announcer, right? That was kind of my dream job. And I was a journalism major in college because of that. He was a true old school newspaper man and chasing down stories, building relationships, breaking news. All the players that have spoken about him just always talked about how consistently he was there every single day, which is not the case for a lot of beat reporters. They take time off, they have to cover other things, whatever it may be. His consistency and the way he kind of, always, would follow up on and go ask the hard questions, even after he had written something either nice or not so nice about a particular player or team. I'm sure, I know you guys talked about this, and excuse me, everyone's seen it by this point because it's 3 or 4 weeks later, but John Tortorella's tribute on ESPN was incredible, really well done, highly classy. Thing done by somebody who, probably didn't have the best relationship with the guy, but understood that he was someone who was doing his job. And I don't have the time nor the energy to actually do an actual rant on this, but that was pretty much the polar opposite of what Jacob Trouba did, which I thought was one of the most classless things I'd ever seen or heard by any public figure.
Yes,
I know you did. That really set me off and bothered me because it showed no respect or dignity towards someone who had just died, whose family members had just lost somebody. I thought it was really low and unbecoming and awful. So whereas John Tortorella, who did not have a good relationship with Larry Brooks, was able to get up there and be really respectful and gave him a really nice tribute. So that was great. And he'll be missed. He won't be replaced because people don't do reporting like that anymore. I know the guys on the beat currently, the guys and gals, Molly's doing an admirable job kind of taking up, that position as a solo act now, which will be very difficult. Vince and Peter and Colin, like, they do their job, they chase their stories, but nobody's going to do what Larry did. So you'll be missed. So that's it. Sorry, guys. I wanted to say that because I have not been on the pod since he passed away and just wanted to get that in.
And we should end there. I know we usually do roundtable thoughts, but we should end with those perfect. Nice words you said about Brooksy.
Appreciate that. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will talk to you next week.